also going to talk about the Seller Roundtable sponsored ship from China, which may or may not be true. You'll have to actually join us in the Zoom meeting because we're not going to tell you if that's true or not till the end. And we're gonna have some fun today. So join us, sellerroundtable.com/live. We are about to get started.
That was a good air traffic controller voice, Andy.
I'm ready to follow instructions.
Right?
He's ready to follow instructions. I love it.
Oh, that was actually the worst part. I hated that part. Is like, you know, when a pilot would break regs and we'd have to like write them up. I hated that. That was the worst.
Andy, did you make David and Ryan co-hosts?
Oh no, I did not. But that's a great idea. Make co-host. Yes.
Okay.
All right, and then I'm gonna actually record now too. So.
Okay, I got you.
Here we go. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Andy Arnott with
Amy Weiss.
And this is Seller Roundtable number 124. And we are super excited to have David Lang and Ryan Shepard on. Welcome, guys. Thanks for being on.
Yeah,
hey, thanks. Hey.
So we messed up Ryan's last name. It's Sherrard. But that's okay.
Sherrard. You know what?
Andy was just reading very fast.
I was. See, if I was still doing ATC, I'd be in big trouble for, not getting the call sign right. So that's what happens when you get old. Sherrard. Sorry, Ryan.
Hey, no worries.
So, I've known these guys for a while, and I'm so excited to have them on the Seller Roundtable today and have them share their inspiring story with all of you guys. It's always good to have sellers on. We have had a lot of service providers on lately, and they're helpful because they give us the tips and they get to, talk to a lot of different sellers and work with a lot of different sellers. And along with that comes a lot of experience that they can share with us. But we love having sellers on the Seller Roundtable because it's really inspiring to be able to have you guys here to talk about your story and, where you got started and where you are now and what you're working on. And so without further ado, David and Ryan, why don't you give us your background and just tell us kind of how you got started, and as much as you want to tell us. Andy always says, if you want to leave a blood sample or whatever, it's okay. As much as you want to tell us, let us know a little bit about you.
Okay, well, it started back in 1985 when I was born. We're living in Germany. So we're both Canadian, but we're living in Germany actually. And we're living in Munich. That's where we met. We met online actually, which is kind of funny because now we're working a lot online with other people and meeting cool people. We met online because my wife, who's also Canadian, was homesick. And I said, look, let's just try to find more Canadians living in the city. And that's how Ryan and I met. And at the time, my wife and I had actually started a little Amazon business. We started just the two of us. I saw a course online that I decided to sign up for. It was just a dream of mine to always try to produce one idea to real product. I gave myself a year deadline. So I said by New Year's Eve, I want to actually launch a product. So when we met Ryan, he saw me working on all this stuff, this Amazon stuff. And we finally launched our first product last year. It was right as COVID hit. So we were live. Our first product was February 2020. We got in. So at least I had all my stock at Amazon and we're trying to sell it, but it was a complete dud. It wasn't working. And Ryan saw me a little frustrated trying to figure stuff out. He's like, what are you doing all this time? Come have a beer. Let's go to the beer garden. I'm like, no, I got to work. I got to hustle. And I was doing that, I have two small kids. So I was listening to all these podcasts. Andy, your voice, literally, I would listen to it, this podcast, as I was like pushing my daughter to fall asleep for a nap. She only falls asleep while we're walking or driving the bike.
But not while listening to Andy.
Not while listening to Andy. You didn't put her to sleep. But I would listen to all these podcasts and try to figure everything out. And then Ryan kind of got a feel for it.
Yeah, I was kind of curious. I was like, I've never done anything on e-commerce before. And so I was just kind of curious and offered, I think initially to help out with, some social media stuff.
Well, so that was the deal. So our personal backgrounds, I'm an airline pilot.
I am a scientist, so very analytical people, but also very different.
Yeah, so quite different, but similar. We have some similar interests. But I actually made him a deal. I'm like, look, I'll get you my buddy pass. but I need you just to take care of my social media stuff.
And I'm thinking, okay, I can get like free flights. This is going to be a great year. Do some social media, just make a few Facebook posts and I can have some free flights. And I think it was 2 weeks later that COVID hit and flights stopped happening.
Flights stopped, so he never got a flight. But then he also never did a social media post for me ever, because I found out he hated social media and he just wanted to help me a bit. But then
he got the bum end of that deal.
Yeah, I know. But he was good at Photoshop, so he helped me with some Photoshop work, some artwork. And then he would actually go online and try to find more people that I could follow, that I could learn from, because I'm a big believer of trying to find someone who's already made it and just learn from them. And he actually found Amy, which was hilarious. He's like, Dave, look, she's starting a course. It's about listing writing. I think your listing might suck. We don't know. Do her course. You're going to learn some stuff about SEO. I'm like, sure.
And I think, Amy, I think the word that got us was canonical URL, and you had an article talking about that, and that blew our minds.
That blew our mind.
We're like this rabbit.
Science.
Yeah. And that's how we started with doing different courses, and we continued. I had a bit more time, more than I wanted last year because of COVID. I wasn't flying a lot. I was grounded for most of the year. And then we made it official. Ryan joined the team. We became a trio at that point. And then Ryan and I got to work, did all the work. My wife was really supportive at home, took care of the 2 kids, and she helped with some creative stuff. And then we basically retired that first failed product, but took all the learnings from it. And then we launched 2 new ones last October. We finished the year with 73,000 in revenue. So that was a big milestone for us for our first year live. We thought that was pretty good. And now this year, it's our second year. We've launched several new products. So we're currently at 7 different products. And we're up at 1.4 million year to date. So pretty excited for Q4. And it's been an exceptional growth. It's been busy nonstop, and it's been kind of wild. We still don't really fully believe it or know what happened.
No, I mean, I started this whole thing with a full head of hair. For anyone who can't hear, you can imagine what my hair looks like now.
Yeah, we said we've been doing Amazon, for 2 years, and we've aged about 30 years. So it's been good.
Wow. Well, it's just amazing that you guys really figured out, first of all, through taking the listing class, that the product might be a dud. Your first product might be a dud, and you still were able to sell that dud by changing up your listing. And then you also realize, like, wow, imagine if we applied this stuff to new products, and look how fast. You also took many other learnings, not just mine, but you were able to scale so fast, and that is just really, really incredible. And it's a good thing to show others how, if you just stay focused and you continue to learn what you don't know, and you continue to apply the things that others are working for others, that you can really make it work for yourself. So along that line, what was really the biggest challenge with Amazon once you got started? And is there any advice that you want to give other sellers that are just starting out?
Yeah. So I think, the biggest challenge at the beginning when I was starting, we have zero background in e-commerce, no real marketing, online, everything was new to us. So the biggest challenge that we had at the beginning was learning things while implementing them at the same time. And it kind of felt like we're learning, we're building, and luckily our character is okay with not fully knowing what's going on and still trying to figure it out. And we didn't see it as a bad thing or as a failure. So we were okay. My original concept was just get a product live. It doesn't matter if it fails, just get it live, because that's when the real learnings are going to come from anyway. And I was totally okay with that. And I said, we just got to get out there. And then that was the one thing that kept us going, because it didn't demotivate us. We didn't see it as a failure. We saw it as a learning opportunity. We just saw it as a practice run, the first product. And the hardest thing was just that constant learning, dealing with the external obstacles, because Amazon loves throwing curveballs, right? Like, especially last year, we all had them, the ASIN restock limit, right? And everyone's scrambling to get a 3PL last minute, and all the 3PLs are full. The shipping delays, lost inventory.
Yeah, we see, like, since day one, I think Dave especially has seen Amazon as this beast, and it's just like, don't poke the beast because you can get your account suspended for 3 months. And and so he's passed that on to me, and now we're both super cautious anytime it comes to poking the Amazon beast. So we stay well within, we don't do any black hat tastics, everything or gray hat, everything's white. We think forward, like what can we do today that's probably gonna get us through not only the next few months, but the next few years in Amazon. We kind of look where Amazon's headed and make our decisions based on, what we think is still going to be acceptable in 2 or 3 years on Amazon.
Yeah, like one key example of that was just when it came to barcodes right at the beginning. I knew I could probably get an exemption and I could just do an FN SKU, but I was like, my mindset, I was always like, yeah, but think bigger, think really big, forget Amazon. Like Ryan and I get into fights because if people ask us, oh, what do you guys do? He'll be like, we're Amazon sellers. I'm like, no, we're not. We're e-commerce people. We have a business. Like we're bigger than just Amazon. And so we'll fight a bit. So we're always trying to think like bigger than Amazon to actually protect us from Amazon, because so we go with GS1 barcodes from the beginning, right? And now it actually evolved that you need a GS1 barcodes and it's better to have the official one. It allowed us to get onto Walmart. So all that stuff, just thinking always bigger than Amazon has kind of protected us from Amazon a bit.
Right. Thinking of Amazon as a sales channel instead of your entire business, I think is so important. Yes, it's a very strong sales channel, but I'm always trying to think about diversification as well. And I know Andy does the same thing. We're always doing new things and we're never afraid to pivot to another strategy or to selling somewhere else. So what about product selection? So you kind of talked about how, your first product, I think all of us have that first product story where we're like, oh, I learned from that one. That was fun. But how has that evolved for you? And how do you now choose a product or develop a product?
You want to take the lead, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really keyword based, keywords, search volume. Can we make a product that has many keywords with high search volume and that are highly relevant for this product?
Yeah.
You don't want to launch a product that only has, a couple search terms with, 300 search volume, a month. And then you're wondering why no one's visiting your listing or why you're not getting any sales. So it's really just keyword driven for us. Yeah. And I think that's exactly why the first product that Dave launched, failed, and why,
here's the thing. The people that bought it, they loved it. And the people that found it, they loved it, but people weren't finding it. Right. And so the course that I originally did said, you just have to differentiate. As long as you're different and better, you're going to get sales. That might be true if people are looking for that. Right. So if you do something that's so unique and so crazy and so out there, then maybe you should launch on Etsy or via Facebook, or you should, find a group that's specifically looking for that. But if you're going to just launch straight on Amazon, there has to be demand for it. So we just pivoted that approach, saying, okay, let's find the search volume and let's create a product that's better than the competition on that search volume. So
got it. So you aren't really thinking about finding a product. You're finding keywords where there's an opportunity and where others have not developed a product in that area yet. And then you're looking at those keywords and that opportunity and developing the product to match, so that when customers search that keyword and there's nothing to match, you are the first to market with that product that perfectly matches that keyword and that intent behind it. And there you go, right? You've got a great product out there. So that's a great strategy to use. It gives you enough search volume where you're not stuck, right? But it also gives you the search volume plus the product that meets the need that isn't currently being met in the marketplace.
Plus, it's a very good way to think of variation for a product too, right? So if you're looking at pet products and you create something for a certain type of dog, then you just find what are the search volumes, what other kind of dogs have high search volume, and then you just pivot that product, turn it into a variation for that type of dog, or at least market it that way. And that's how we were able to come up with so many different variations of our product, which are all very similar, but they're similar to us because they're similar manufacturers, a similar process. However, because they have a completely different set of keywords, for Amazon, it's a completely new product and a completely different market.
Yeah.
Right.
And great with all the products, with all the different keyword tools you have nowadays, they're just so accessible to people. With Helium 10, we love brand analytics, you know, because that data is coming straight from Amazon. And then even one time, Dave and I were just sitting kind of searching on Amazon.com in the search bar, and we started typing in something, and the search bar auto-completed what we were typing into something we never even thought about. And we're like, whoa, are we launching that product?
And we just launched it, and it was great, and it's a good success. So thanks, autocomplete.
That's really, really awesome. Yeah, I think that is a really great way to find the market. It's like when they say find your buyer, instead of looking for that product, right, where you're just getting stuck in that loop of, you know, analysis paralysis. Find your buyer and then give them what they're looking for. And that's a very quick way to be able to launch and rank very, very quickly. So speaking of launch, can you guys talk a little bit about your launch process? What does your launch process look like? And yeah,
it's a relevant topic, because we just launched a new product a couple of days ago. So we're actually smack dab in the middle of a new launch right now. I mean, maybe Dave, you can take the lead on this one, but I think it's just,
well, our launch, we actually started way before, like during product selection kind of. So it all starts with a keyword list. We create our keyword list. We make sure that when we select the keywords that we want to really launch for, and that when we launch the product or during the product selection, we don't just look in the month that we're looking at the product. So let's say we're doing keyword research or product research in February. We're not looking at February search volume. What we're looking at is the Q4 of last year, maybe the year before. We try to get historical data on it because we want to make sure we have a product that has a nice big peak. And we also want to see seasonality of the product and of search volume, right? So we actually plot, okay, where are the peaks? Okay, we're expecting a Valentine's peak maybe, or a summer peak or a Christmas peak. So we'll plot it all out, and we do this kind of like a forecast of each keyword, what their search volume looks like. And then we say, okay, in which month are we launching in? What's the search volume that's highest in that month? Those are the keywords we're going to go for. Always looking forward though, saying we're going to use the chance now. So for example, the product we're launching now, we're trying to be organically in the top Christmas keywords, because by the time Christmas comes, we don't want to start having to rank for it, where PPC is going to be expensive. Everyone's going to try to rank for it. So we're always thinking like 3-4 months ahead, where do we want to end up after we finish this launch? So that's kind of where it starts. And then for the actual launch itself, we actually just do PPC. So we started very narrowed. We do a very, very focused PPC. Our main objective when we launch is just to prove to the algorithm that we know what our product is, what keywords we want to be listed for, ranked for. We targeted with exact match only. And we only start actually with a sponsored product. So we don't do any brand ads at the beginning on it or video ads at the very beginning. We can explain later why. We only do sponsored products. We try to get a very high click-through rate on it to show relevancy. So we actually do a higher top of search modifier. And we're okay with a high ACoS because we know that it'll be worth it long-term. And we start on a very, very small list of keywords that are highly relevant. So ultra relevant. And in the first couple of days, we may not get a lot of sales, but the sales that we do get are at a very high conversion rate, right? And then we track everything. So we have a launch tracker that we built where we track our daily sales and our organic ranking of all the keywords that are in our list, where we can actually see what's happening. And we can see a halo effect, meaning that we're targeting only 5 words, but we're starting to get ranking on 10, 15 words. And once we see some ranking from that halo effect, we start now pushing with PPC on that phase 2 or phase 3 keyword.
Yeah.
I hope I explained
that. I think normally Andy and I both would be like, what do you mean you only use PPC? You know, because we really want people to use external traffic. We want you to, because it just ranks you really, really well. But in your case, what you're doing differently that most people don't do is you're doing that keyword research, extensive keyword research, and you're launching based on those keywords and the timing of the search volume of those keywords, and you're focused on the platform specifically for that search volume. So I think in your case, it's okay to be using, and clearly this launch strategy is working well for you because it's really been successful for you. So not only are you using keywords to choose the right product, but you're also using your keyword research in in-depth keyword research from the past, right? Looking, a year or longer backwards so that you can predict what it's going to be in the future. You're planning your launch around that. And you're really focused in on those keywords that you want to be on page 1 for, that you want to convert for, that are super relevant to your customer. You're launching, you're ranking for those first, and then you're moving on to your next ones and your next ones, and you're having the snowball effect. So while it is an Amazon only PPC thing, I think that, the proof is in the pudding, and you guys have done a very good job.
In all fairness, we do start running external ads after about 2-3 weeks, but we want the first 2-3 weeks just to be fully in our control, where we get full data. Because when we run external ads, the attributions we found, they're not very accurate, or they lag sometimes. So we don't feel like we're in control, and we're big control freaks, Ryan and I. So we like to have as much data as possible to see the results from what we're doing. That's why we just focus on Amazon for the first 3-4 weeks, and then we start doing external as well.
And even what we do is just Google search ads, again, just on those very high relevant terms. So you're driving external traffic, but it's still ultra relevant external traffic that could convert on your listing. So
I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing either, in terms of staying focused just on that one thing, unless you have a dedicated, if you're a small team and you don't have somebody who's like dedicated to PPC or paid ads or something like that, the whole 80-20 thing, if you can put more concentration into making sure that those campaigns are successful, that might be better than, kind of half-assing like 3 or 4 different, traffic sources and being like, is it working? I don't know, maybe, so that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I was just gonna say, not necessarily a bad thing, but also, getting that data and then turning on the traffic that the keywords that you already know through the Amazon platform are converting. Not necessarily a bad plan, especially if you're getting in there before the honeymoon period's over.
Sorry, no, I was just gonna say, going back to the first product that we had, because we had a really hard time selling it. We were trying everything. We were throwing,
Pinterest, Facebook,
all the things. We were filming video ads in my backyard, on my camera. And it was good because it forced us to look at all the different avenues of traffic, but it did spread us pretty thin, and we didn't see a huge boost based on those efforts. So,
and the only thing it really taught us is, like, if you screw up the product research phase, and if you try to launch a product that's destined to fail on Amazon, it's just going to be expensive and time. It's going to cost you time and energy. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, it's really awesome that I think all of us learn from those failed products. We try to sell them any way possible, and it builds us up. But like you were saying, if you know the platform that you're selling on, and you know that you're bringing a product to market that is meeting a need that isn't being met right now, and you have a strategy for that platform. And I agree, my phase 1 of launch, I don't run, I do spin up my Google ads, but that's just because Google ads take a couple of weeks to spin up. But I only focus on exact match, sometimes phrase match, depending on the keyword, but very, very targeted keywords. I'm not running an auto campaign during the first couple of weeks of launch, because your listing isn't indexed yet. So you're going to get a bunch of bad data. And it's not good to not tell Amazon exactly what your product is and where they should be showing it, because otherwise you're just going to get bad data, and you're going to be indexed for all sorts of things that you really have no business being indexed for. So love that strategy. I think it's great. And I'm glad that you guys also take advantage of external traffic eventually. That's awesome. So great launch process, but what about give us your best ninja ranking tricks.
Best ninja ranking trick. So we've tried so many things. One trick that I could mention is what's bad for ranking, because it'll allow you to avoid it, which is almost as good as ranking. So the nice thing that we learned, so last year when we had the ASIN restock limit, and our first product failed, so we only bought a couple hundred units for the second and third product. And the nice thing was that we saw we're going to run out of inventory. We're going to sell out. We're going to be out of stock. So we actually turned off PPC. And what we noticed was, by turning off PPC, all our sales were organic. That organic sales have way more power for ranking than PPC does. And before that, we're putting so many sales on PPC and even top of search. We want to get that PPC sale because we figured that's the only one. And by just having a bit more patience, getting organic sales actually helps boost it. And then we actually found it on a couple other websites, I think Seller SEO or something, that they actually had a plot that showed you the ranking juice of different types of ads or organic sales, external traffic, how much that helps, right? And organic actually carries a lot of the weight. And we actually tested that again a couple months later when, we're finally back in stock and we're running out of stock. We turned it off again, and, we did $480,000 worth of revenue in 30 days, purely organically, which was crazy. The real lesson came though, when we were out of stock, then we were out of stock for 2 months. So we're like, okay, this is gonna be hard. We're gonna have to re-rank. Now we had all the stock we could ever imagine because we bought a lot of stock, and now we're pushing PPC hard. And what we noticed was the harder we pushed, like we opened the floodgates, the worse our ranking got. Yeah. And we're like, it doesn't make sense. We're giving Amazon more money. We're getting more sales. But what was kind of happening was that our ad contribution was going up. So we're getting less organic. It wasn't counting as much. We were putting we were spending a lot of money for top of search. So the sponsored ad was always above the organic one, always. And so the customer had very few chance. We're cannibalizing our organic sales. So then we decided, okay, we panicked. We said, okay, we only want to do highly relevant. Our best converting one was our video ad. So we turned off all PPC except for the video ad. And then we noticed our ranking was hurting. And we're like, this doesn't make sense. We're converting so well. Our unit session percentage is good.
And not only was the video ad converting well, it was driving a lot of sales volume as well. And we're selling, our video ad is targeting a single keyword and it's selling a ton. And our ranking was just stagnant on this keyword.
So then we realized that the video ads for Amazon is considered a brand ad. So it's attributed to the brand, not necessarily to the product. So it doesn't carry the weight of the product for the organic ranking as much. It's essentially saying, okay, this brand, let's say Nike, is getting a sale. It doesn't really know what product you're selling because it's a brand ad. It's the same like if you run a store ad, right? It just gets attributed to the brand. So although they're really good for conversions and like they were cheap for us at the time, there wasn't a lot of competition, it wasn't helping with the ranking. So like our ninja trick would be to everyone that talks PPC, they're obviously, most of them are trying to sell you their PPC products or methods or their agencies. So they're going to say PPC is master and you have to do it. But sometimes less is more because you still want to try to get those organic sales. So don't cannibalize your own organic ranking with the PPC stuff. And it might be as simple as saying, look, if we're on the top half of page 1, we're going to make sure we bid low on PPC so that the sponsored placement is below the organic placement, as you're going to catch them the second time around.
Right. And I think it's so important to look at your placement too. What I like about your launch strategy is that you're focused on very relevant keywords. I think a lot of people spend a lot of money on so many irrelevant keywords, or they'll put way too many keywords in a campaign and their relevant keywords aren't getting impressions because one, broad match is running away with the entire budget. And, they just don't have the ability to really look at that at a really great level, right? Where you guys are taking just a few super relevant keywords, you're really focused in, you're checking your placement, you're looking where you are organically. Amazon's definitely making it tougher because there are more sponsored ad placements now on the page. You got to get like 3/4 of the way down the page now before you even start seeing organic listings. And the other day, we can see that they're testing more sponsored ad placements at the top because they've been testing that. They've had like 8 spots for ads. They've been turning that on and off lately. So I think it's going to be harder and harder. But the one thing that we can learn from this ninja trick that you just gave us is that it's important to also check where your ads are compared to your organic placement. Like, it's great. Make sure you're at the top of page 1 for that super relevant keyword that you're going to convert all day on. But then also take a look on those lesser important keywords where you're still on page 1, have that sponsored ad below it, right? Where it's not so much, so adjust your bids accordingly. I love it. That's a great trick. Andy?
Yeah, I was just gonna say one of the biggest things, I've spent. I looked at my account the other day just because I was like, how much PPC have I done just in my own account? It was like $2.1 million since I started, but I've been doing this for a long time. But one of the things that I had to learn the hard way, which you guys won't have to spend that much to learn a lot of these things, is one of the most basic things. Which I mean, so many people, all you know, when we got hired to go look at some PPC accounts, and we go in there, it's trimming the fat, right? They're not looking at the data and going, oh, these 30 keywords since the beginning haven't given me any sales. And I hate turning keywords off, but I love turning them off by bid. In other words, reducing bid to the point where it's not going to show unless a major competitor drops off or, something happens. The chances are pretty slim, but I hate turning keywords off. But just trimming the fat and once again, going 80-20, right? Looking at the 10 to 20 keywords that are performing over and over again and, pushing that budget towards those keywords that are working. Especially if you're budgeting out, right? If every day you log into your account and by noon you're out of budget and you can't scale that budget or it's not performing well enough or something like that, the easiest way to then optimize those that PPC is to turn off what's not working and concentrate on what is working. So more to that's kind of staying focused that Dave and Ryan seem to do in terms of PPC.
Yeah, I know. I think PPC is a beast. And exactly like you said, Andy, like we've all been there where you see a campaign that converts, 1 out of 11 clicks and you're like, oh, I got a sale, and you don't want to turn it off, or you kind of want to turn it off, but you don't. And what Dave and I saw was, look, our organic listing, like our unit session percentage, if you look at the business report, our conversion was maybe, 30-35% on this one listing. And then we were looking at keywords that were only converting, 1 out of 10. Normally, I think 10% would be good, but for this product, we're like, actually, that's hurting our unit session percentage. So, tone that down or even pause it, So look at your unit session percentage and kind of use that as a benchmark. Your PPC shouldn't be bringing
too far
down,
below it.
Too far.
Yeah, I love looking at organic versus PPC sales and placement, and just you got to look at all the pieces of the puzzle and make sure you're understanding your metrics, because you got to be able to measure things, right? So speaking of measuring success, let's talk about scaling. How did you guys scale?
Yeah, so it came from, so the first step is that whole mentality thing. Always thinking bigger than you currently are, right? Because right now you're small. When you start, you're small, but always think next. So anytime that we would write even a purchase order, I would discuss with Ryan and be like, look, we got to build this so that if, next time we place an order, if it's bigger, that it supports a bigger order. And we do everything on Excel because we love Excel. So we even did a purchase order on Excel where we just have to type in the units. It would totally auto-populate all the specs to all those units for all the color variations, and everything is done. And every purchase order, we would say, okay, we got to edit this because we're changing it a bit, we're getting bigger. Next purchase order will be easier. And now we've been saying that for a while, but now we're actually at the point where
finally it's finally
at a place where we literally, so then we have this order forecast where we have this sheet where we look at the SKUs that we want to order, and we just copy and paste that forecast number into the purchase order first page, and it's fully done. So we ordered $250,000 worth of goods in China, and it takes 4 minutes to do it. So having those systems in place allows us to kind of scale bigger, because the business once it gets momentum, those purchase orders come fast. And you feel like, oh man, we just had one. We just did the inspection. Oh yeah, we need an inspection checklist. So like, we don't want to restart our work every time we go sit down. So we say, as we build the business, we got to build everything to be like a procedure that we can just modify a bit, but then reuse every time it comes up. And that's a nice sweet spot where we're at now, where we feel like if we have to have another inspection or a mid-inspection or a shipment, everything's much, much faster now.
And it's a steep learning curve, but I mean, once you figure it out, you can make these processes.
So now for the scaling part, I mean, obviously we needed some financial support too. So once we saw, okay, we understand our system, we know we can work well together, we think we figured out Amazon, we're gonna need some funding, because we knew we needed to leverage what we had already built to scale bigger.
So Dave called his mom.
I called my mom and said, please. So we are lucky, and that's where networking came into effect, right? So luckily, we're part of all these different Facebook groups, and we saw that, someone posted in a Facebook group, hey, I'm working together with this startup. They're starting to fund these sellers, and if anyone ever needs some funding, right, contact us. And I remember this was, I mean, our good product, our first good product had just launched. We literally had a couple weeks of sales data, but we had this epic forecasting system where we knew that we were on track and we knew we were going to hit the numbers. It was for us math. And we convinced this startup to actually fund us for $300,000. So that was our first round of funding. And then the second round of funding, they gave us $1 million. So we've been just with that money, and we've been able to pay them back. It's great. We have great margins. So that allowed us to grow that fast. And it was just because we had the systems in place, the forecasting in place, that they believed in us. And I think it's been pretty good so far.
That's amazing. I love that you started with the end in mind. You're building processes along the way. You're thinking, how can I make it so that I don't have to manually do this ever again? That's so, so important. And it's something most of us start with, that kind of technician mindset. And we're self-employed first before we actually, move on to starting to build out those processes and grow our team. So I love that you guys did that, and that you looked at your forecast and you got that money ahead of time, because that also stops people, it trips people up. So it's really awesome.
And
all right.
One trick to give on that, on the whole, thinking of the end game. So, I mean, Ryan, he's similar. He's a scientist. He works on stuff daily, and he did it. And I'm like, oh, I told Ryan, when we're working on Excel, I want you to, every time you open an Excel sheet, I want you to make it as if we're going to be able to sell it to someone else. That is they have nothing to do with our business. That's how we got to think of it. Let's build it and we got to sell it.
So started making them pretty, putting in
make
borders.
It pretty, put in borders.
They're very pretty. I can attest that your spreadsheets are very pretty.
So we're like scientific in here, and I'm like, look, we're working together. So I got to be able to open your sheet. You got to open mine. No, they're good. They're good. But I wanted it to be pretty, because then there's two things happen. One, you get excited to use your own tools. Two, they're built so good that they're good for multiple use cases down the line. So it's not just a one-off. You can use it, in 2-3 months when you do another product, you use the same sheet. And then three, now we were actually able to start selling these Excel sheets, and we're actually doing a side hustle to our side hustle. So it's just been it's a little trick. Build your systems as if you're going to sell that system to someone else.
I love that. I do the same thing. I learn everything so that I can teach it. And at the same time, I learn it at a really great level. And I also have created something that I can give to someone else and charge money for. So it's a great process. And I know that you guys give great value with your sheets. Andy did the same thing. He built software tools. He built Seller SEO in response to him running his Amazon business. And, it's really great to have the tools that you need to be able to scale your business, especially if you build them yourself, and you can get other people you can give other people help at the same time. So awesome. Where else do you guys sell? Do you just sell on Amazon? You mentioned you started selling on Walmart. Do you sell on other channels besides Amazon and Walmart?
So no, we're just on Amazon, Walmart, and we have our own Shopify store as well. So those 3 channels. And I mean, Amazon is still the bulk of the sales, but it's, Walmart is, we just got approved for Walmart fulfillment service, so WFS. So we're excited about that, so that, we can, because we're still learning the Walmart algorithm, but we're excited that maybe being WFS.
The 2-day shipping is huge for ranking, right?
Yeah. Yes. Everything else on Walmart's algorithm is totally jacked. But if you do the shipping, it's pretty good. I've been playing around with the guys at,
of course, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. We'll be in, because
I've been connected with the guys at DataSpark who created this, Walmart data tool, and they're playing around with stuff too, trying to figure out, especially for private label products, how you get those to the top of search, because on Walmart, everything's about like sales. And, if you search for something like dog toy, you also get like kids toys on Walmart. It's totally so jacked up. So
some search terms, they actually pull up just like a category thing where you can enter categories. You don't even see products. I'm like, I just search, I want the products, but they make you go into these nodes. So we still haven't figured it out, but.
Well, we know to keep in touch. We'll all, as we figure out Walmart, we'll help each other.
Exactly.
Well, I think it's Andy's turn.
Yeah. So
questions.
Oh, I should have cleared my throat first, right? So guys, what I'm curious about is, with all the stuff going on in the world, what are you guys going to do to hedge against things like supply chain issues, labor issues, and just like the general turmoil that's going on in the world right now?
Yeah, no, really good question. So that was actually a strategy that we kind of had before. So when we were about to place our third order in the year, so that's like our Q3 order, um, Ryan and I, we looked at our numbers and we looked at the financing that we had got. We just had a really good Q2 and we said, look, how about we just take half of our Q4 order and order it prematurely on purpose? Because what we saw was a trend in increase of shipping costs. And we said, and then we did a cross calculation. Would the inventory placement at our 3PL, the cost associated to that, be offset by increase of shipping? And it was almost break even. We said, look, the containers, they're going up so much. We were sending 6 containers now at a time. So let's just send, 3 of those containers that we're going to do for Q4 early. We'll store them. It'll be 10,000 a month, let's say, storage fees, but it'll be break even, and we'll be sure to have the goods, stateside for Q4 guaranteed. So now we have a lot less pressure with the delays because we're always like 3-4 months ahead of an inventory stateside. We're able to do that obviously because of a very solid sales period in Q2 and the financing that we had. But we've now tried to use that to also implement it in our business to say at any given point, we've got to have at least 3 months in the States, which is good news because yesterday our supplier wrote us that they got the power shortage notification in China, that they're going to be shut down. They're only going to be on like half production speed. So we're able to now say it's okay. We know we have goods in that'll last us till March, but we're placing the order now already just to try to advance our lead time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think kind of the other side of that story is like, yeah, getting in ahead of Q4, but going out of stock on Amazon sucks. Like, I think you guys can attest to that. When you've pumped money and time and effort into ranking a product, and then you go out of stock and you're out of stock for 2 months, and then just you got to start the train going again and just pump so much more money and effort into it. So we're like, we just don't want to go out of stock. So let's make sure we have enough stock on American soil to essentially make sure we don't do that again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. One of the things that I was lucky about is, years ago, I did a lot. I started as merchant fulfilled, right? So before I even did FBA, I was merchant fulfilling. And so I was lucky enough to have enough property to where I would just literally have, I think at one point I sent Amy pictures of this, but I had like containers in my backyard. And that was my 3PL. So I didn't have to pay anyone, but I had stock and I would, order extra every Q4. And as the one of our main products that sells amazing every Q4 would, as it scaled up every year, I'd have that extra stock and everybody else would run out. And that's, where I'd make my money. So it's awesome that you guys are pre-planning. The people who don't pre-plan, we say this every year. It's like the people who don't pre-plan and run out of stock. What you don't realize is as more and more sellers, as you get closer to the holidays, more and more sellers stock out, right? So all of a sudden now, if you still have stock in, you're in the best position possible because then you can start scaling back your ads, you can start increasing your pricing. Like you're in the spot now where it's like, now instead of making, $30 a unit or whatever it is, you're now making 50 or, just because now you're able to scale not only your ads back, but also increase your price at the same time.
Oh, definitely. And what's a very good comparison to that? This is something with PPC is budgets. So the way that everyone sets up their budgets, right, is that it starts at the beginning of the sales day. And if you set a budget for $50, it's going to run out, let's say, I don't know, by 6 p.m. And then there's a lot of, then you're not running ads at the evening time. So what we actually learned is that if you actually bid less, your budget stretches out and the cost per clicks at the end of the day are so much cheaper because there's less competition. Most people are not running ads in the evening because they're out of budget for the big keywords.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have an episode. If you guys go back through the podcast, go look for day parting, and that was one of the strategies that I especially like in the weeks leading up to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, things like that. People are going crazy on bids, right? And usually it's a losing battle. But what I would do is I would day part in the beginning of the day, so till like noon, no ads, and then turn them on at noon, and then for the rest of the day it would run. Now all of a sudden I'm blowing through that budget, but my clicks are way cheaper because so many other sellers have now budgeted out already throughout the day because those cost per click has gone up so much. So
And
yeah, I
did you
love
turn
that.
it on and off manually, or
No. So in seller SEO, there's you can literally just kind of like drag hours on like when you want your ads to. And I also did a ton of testing where I'd have campaigns that would just come on like super early in the morning, like 1 to
right?
3 a.m. Like I was doing all kinds of time testing. And there's some interesting stuff that comes out of that.
How
In
does the
turn,
software do it though? Does it actually pause it, or does it just adjust the
yep,
budget?
it pauses it.
It
Yep.
pauses. Okay. And
Yep. So
you
it'll
didn't find
pause it.
any negatives, because we just heard in the community some people saying never turn off
I've heard that, but I think it's if it's in the same day. So in other words, if you don't turn it off for multiple days, I don't think it has an adverse effect. I mean, you can of course test it, right? So just
Right,
spin up a
right.
campaign with like one keyword and test it. But yeah, there's the especially during the holidays, everybody
Yeah.
talks trash about day parting, but I definitely saw some really interesting effects by using day parting.
Because what we did, we were using a software. What they were doing is they were just actually just incrementally increasing your budget. So you would say like, look, I want to spend $600 or whatever a day, and they would say, okay, we'll allot then $100 in the first 3 hours, and the next $100 on the next 3 hours or whatever, and they would incrementally increase it. But we didn't actually like that method, so we stopped doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
tried that.
there's a lot of other interesting things you can do too. Is you can spin up, two of the same campaigns with different bids, and you can have
Right.
one that runs at one part of the day, stop it, and then start the other one. Like, there's a lot of fun things you can do there. At some point, I would love to be able to automate all of that. Yeah, there's some fun stuff with PPC that you can start turning
And so
dials on.
creative too, right? Like we'll do waterfall campaigns, right? Like we'll
Yep.
make sure ones just bug the competitors at the beginning of the day.
I think those came
Yep.
from Brian Johnson, and they
Yeah.
worked
They
really
worked
well.
well.
Yeah. I mean, PPC is an art. People don't realize that, they think it's all cut and dry. And, even the PPC experts out there, if you ask, they're going to have 10 different ways to do things. But what's cool is to look at, I always tell people, like, don't take my word for it. Take what I say, go research it, see what other people are doing, and then test it all and see what works, or take some of the stuff people are doing here and combine it with this. And I mean, there's so much fun. To me, PPC is one of the most fun parts of Amazon. But I love marketing and ads. So to me, it's always a blast to go in and turn dials. So guys, one of the other things I would love for you to share is, everybody always shares, especially with guys who are like you who are being successful, is, they think it's like so easy to like get to where you are. I would love for you guys to kind of talk about like some of the struggles that you guys went through. And, like I've told people on the podcast before, there were, holes in my wall. I started selling on Amazon in 2012. There were holes in my wall on occasion because of some of the just absolute, like, beyond frustrating things that you run into on Amazon. Any big hurdles that you guys ran into, and kind of how'd you plow through them?
Yeah. So many, right?
It's like,
so many. I
we
mean,
got scars. Yeah.
yeah, we got scarred. It's so tricky. And I think the hardest thing is just to tell yourself, hey, it's temporary. I think the more hurdles that you have, the more you realize, hey, we just passed those 10 and we thought that was going to be the end of it. Where there was a failed inspection with a really bad product, and you're like, well, and oh no, we didn't catch it, or the first 1-star review. So what we had, our biggest one, I think, to date was when we were at it. We had a massive March, April, May, and then we're fully out of stock. And it took us till July to get it ready. And they had the restock limit. So we said, okay, that's fine. We sent in 20,000 units to Amazon LTL pickup. I'm like, we'll be back in stock in no time. And it went into like a middle warehouse somewhere. Narnia. And Amazon just said, yeah, no. And they didn't give you a tracking number, because if it's an Amazon partner carrier, the Amazon Ground Logistic, AGL, they said it'll be dropped off within 24 hours of pickup, so you don't need a tracking number. So we didn't have a tracking number. So we're trying to go, and no one knew where it was. And it took 2 months. So now, and the problem is, in the system, it says there's 20,000 units inbound. We weren't able to send in more. So, and we have this financing, and we have to pay back all this financing money. And we're like, oh, luckily we had some profit. We haven't paid ourselves out ever yet. We had Katie and cheese, like we haven't eaten. So that was a big stressor, just because you felt so helpless. It wasn't in your control. We didn't make a mistake. Right. And I think that's the hardest thing. And that's also the one thing where we just take a step back and say, look, this isn't our fault. It happened. We stay on top of it. We talk to then the people that finance us. We said, we got to readjust the payment schedule. There's no way we can do it. It's not our fault. They were super understanding. So that was good. And that was a lesson to realize, like, if it's not our control, there's no real point of stressing about it. We just have to deal with it.
Yeah, that's such a great point. That was one of the things that, I finally learned after doing this for years is, you know, you have to be the squeaky wheel, right? You have to be on Amazon's back. But after you do that, like sitting around stressing, pulling your hair out does absolutely nothing for you. So, take a step back, be like, okay, so I have this inventory issue. I can't do anything about that, like you said. So rather than stress about that, why don't I go back and like maybe work on my images? Like, in other words, divert that attention, that stress, that I need that feeling of I need to do something, I need to get something done, and channel that into something else to put that energy into, because otherwise, like you said, you just sit around and stew. Like, like I said, I literally punched a hole in my wall once. This was way back in the day, during Q4 when there was literally no way to get rid of hijackers. And we had a Chinese hijacker come in and pretty much hijack our entire catalog, like 400 SKUs for almost the entire, you're talking about net probably 300 grand worth of profit. I think it was back in like 2013, 14, somewhere around then. And there's nothing I could do. I mean, I was on the phone every day to like 10 different people, and they're just like, yeah, sorry, like, well, you have to do the test order. This is back when, do you remember the whole test order thing?
Yeah.
And, it would take like from China, like 2 months, and they would send you like a keychain instead of the product. Like it was,
Oh
they
no.
were, I mean, back then it was like the Wild West, and it was so hard to get anything done. But like you said, those were back then. It was like there were so many hard knocks that it was just like by the end of Steel, there's not very much on Amazon now that people can be like, hey, I ran into this, how can I fix it? I'm like, oh, you do this and this. I've done this like 10 times by now. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that the most successful people in e-commerce, not only on Amazon but in general, are the ones who are just willing to take that stress, push through it, get to the next spot, because 80% of the people are like, oh, this sucks, and throw up their hand and they're done, right? So
That's kind of the motivating thing, isn't it? It's like just knowing that if you persevere and you stick through, you're going to be like, one of those 2 out of 10 people who actually makes it. And so that kind of drives you, eh? Like see the bumps in the road as like toughening you up and getting you ready for the long journey.
And I
yeah.
think in flying, we do it all the time, right? Like if our engine is on fire, we'll notice the engine is on fire. So we notice the issue, but then our energy's, spent on fixing the issue and not on the problem. Like we forget that there's an engine fire because we're just working our checklist. And I think we try to apply that now to the Amazon business.
Took you a
And
long time to
that's
get the first flying metaphor.
I've been holding myself back, guys.
no, that's actually an excellent analogy. The whole checklist in an aircraft. What was it? BC Gump? Is that the acronym? I think I still remember it. It's your, but that was what they taught us in school. But anyway, yeah, that was another thing. I was trying to share my failures so other people don't have to. Is systems and processes and knowing your numbers. I mean, those are some of the basic things that I didn't have when I started. And if I would have known that back then, I mean, I could have scaled probably to, an 8, 9, 10, who knows? I mean, I could have just scaled to infinity if I knew some of those things back then. But, back then I was a computer guy and an aviation guy, and, e-commerce was just like, hey, I can put stuff on Amazon. It sells like crazy, and that was kind of the basics, right? So those are some of the things that I would really implore people to know your numbers, build systems, even if it's just in a Google Doc and you're sitting down one day and you're doing like merchant fulfilled, just write down your process. Cause then when you do scale, you can hand that off. Not only that, but just in consistency, right? If anybody hasn't seen the McDonald's documentary on YouTube, I forget the name of it. As systems go, it's fascinating to see that a guy came in, pretty much just took the business over, saw the systems in place, and just doubled down and just kept making the systems better and better. McDonald's hamburger is crap. I don't eat fast food, but I used to. But I still am floored at those systems in place, right? The consistency, you do it this time every time, and then the customer knows what to expect. I think it can translate easily into this. So I love that. All right, guys. So one of the things that we love to do, and in this business you have to do, is always, continue to learn. Anything that you guys are into right now in terms of, personal development was late for me, but to me, that's one of the first things you can start on. You should start on any kind of motivational things you're doing, any podcasts, books, anything that's really kind of changed your perspective or made a big impact in your life or in your business.
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, yeah, I'm just starting to get back into it, but doing mindfulness practice and some meditation in the evening using there's several apps available now. I use one called Mindspace, and it's, because I'm in the lab all day. My brain is going, it's analytical. And then when I get home, it's just Amazon, Amazon, Amazon. So it never stops. And I just, to remind yourself to take even just 5 or 10 minutes out of the day, and just take some time to turn your brain off and just calm down, calm the storm. I think that's been really helpful. And then the second thing that I like to do is, there's so kind of in the same thing, there's a lot of voices, not only in your heads, but in the Amazon world too. And I love to I guess we love to find just the 5 or 6 voices that we'd like to listen to, that we really trust. And just, when they put out new content, listen to it, take the learnings, but just kind of tune out all the other noise, because you just find the people you trust.
Yeah. And for me, on a personal level, I mean, I love reading. So there's a couple books that I always like to pick up. A really good one is Atomic Habits, sorry. And that's just one. It's talking about habits and, what's the basis behind it. Make something that you hate doing associated with something that you love. So for example, if you love going on Facebook in the morning and checking the news feeds, then tell yourself you got to do 10 push-ups before you're allowed to do that. And now the 10 push-ups become so much easier because there's an instant reward after. Stuff like that. I think I've done so much like readings about, self-development and all that stuff. But what this last year and a half has allowed me to do was actually to implement it and to really see how much work is required on yourself, right? So we can all read about staying calm and not having fights. And then, Ryan and I will burst at each other, have a massive fight, and be like, hey, I thought we are both supposed to be calm and mindful, right? So the business has allowed us to put all the theory into practice a bit, which has been fun. And then what we like to do is we like to reflect on it, debrief it a bit, talk it out, and try to learn from it.
And always celebrate the wins, no matter how small, like we fire up the barbecue. Sorry, Dave fires up his massive barbecue. And, we cook some burgers and put on some music and just celebrate, every little win, every little launch, every victory. Yeah.
I love it. Fantastic. All right. So the other thing that's the most important question of the podcast is, how do you say take off hoser in German?
Take off hoser?
Oh, take off your hoser.
I didn't realize you guys were Canadian. Sorry, I had to throw that out there. I went to college in North Dakota, so we'd always cross over into Winnipeg.
That's like Love Canada it. South.
Canada South, right?
All right, guys. Thank you so much for being on. How can people get a hold of you guys? Anything you guys want to plug? Please let people know. What you guys are up to next.
Yeah, so I mean, we're always trying to, figure out what's the next thing that we're doing. Right now, what we like to do is connect with people that are also selling, and we actually share all of the Excel sheets that we use for our business. Like we said, we built all our Excel sheets with the intent of maybe selling them one day. We did that just to make sure that they're better. And we're actually selling them. You guys can find us on Facebook. We have a group called the Van Dog Group, and it's super small. I think Amy was the second person in it. We celebrated that one.
Awesome. I love it.
But it's fun. It's a small group, right? And our main goal now is we're going to scale the business. We're going to exit it next year. And then we're going to focus more on, maybe doing another brand, or just focusing maybe on helping other people do the same thing that we did. And I'm going to buy an airport.
I love it. Absolutely love it. An airport, or just one of those houses where you can where it's like a community airstrip that you can land in and pull into your garage.
Right. No, I'm actually going to buy the airport. So I'm actually going to, everyone's laughing when I tell them, but I'm actually doing it. I can't wait.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome.
It's near my hometown in Montreal, and I went to take a look at it in August, and it's awesome. I just need the business to keep working the way it's working. I got to get the right timing for the sale, and then I'm going to buy that airport. So I already put in a little offer, and I'm super excited. My wife gets to move home, and I get to, that would be a dream come true. If a little boy like buys his airport. So
I absolutely love it. It's like Gary Vee saying, he's going to buy the jets. I love it. If you don't have that audacious goal, you'll never get to it. Right. So exactly. Absolutely.
Got to dream big, because it's such a rough road to get there, but that airport keeps me so motivated.
That's awesome. I love that so much. Hey guys, it was really nice meeting you. Thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate it. We'll see you guys again, hopefully sometime soon in the near future, so we can get some updates on what you guys are up to. Thank you so much for being on.
Of course. All right. Thanks, Andy. Thanks
Andy.
So
much, guys.
Yeah. All right, guys. And if you have not done so yet, please rate, review, subscribe. We really appreciate when you guys do that. Share it with friends if you think they're going to get some value out of this, guys. And as usual, we do this live Tuesday, 1 p.m. Pacific time, sellerroundtable.com/live. Join us. You can be in the Zoom meeting. So you can ask Dave and Ryan, like, we're going to stop the recording, stop the broadcast, and you guys get some behind the scenes if you join us live. So we'll see you guys next time on the Seller Roundtable. Thanks so much.